Kesubos Daf Pei Hey is a series of stories, cases about people who are owed money, how it was handled, and a number of shilas that came up. So we begin a few lines into the Daf already, and we start with the story of Avimri, the son of Rabbi Avo, who owed money to a number of people in the town of Chizayim. So he sent a messenger, he sent a shliach, he sent the money in the hand of Chama, the son of Rabba Bar Avua. So Chama went and he paid them the money. And then he said to them, give me back the stars. The rule is when you have a loan that's repaid, so the payer should take back the contract, the star that says he owes it. Otherwise, they'll be able to claim again that he owes it. So they said, no, we're not giving it back. Well, what kind of business? Why not? So he said, we were owed by him other money. That other money didn't have a star. So you paid that money, or we're going to hold on to this star so we can have proof to collect the other money that he owed. That was a milval peh, that was made with star, and therefore, even though you paid some of it, we're holding on to the star for something else. Anyway, that could have been a lie, but either way, they refused to return the star. So they came before Rabbi Avo. What should we do? Should we believe them or not? So he said, do you have proof that you paid them? He asked the shliach, he asked Chama, Breder Rabbi Bar Avu, do you have proof that you paid them? So he said, no, I don't have proof that you paid them. So he said, well, if you don't have proof that you paid them, then they could have claimed that it was no such thing. You never paid at all. Since they could have claimed that, they have a migu when they say that they paid, but they're owed other money. They have a migu and they're believed, and therefore you can't force them to give the star back. So Gemara says, now, the question here is the messenger at fault for not taking the star first, for first paying and not taking the star? So maybe the messenger has to pay back the one who sent him. Maybe Chama has to pay back Avimi. So Gemara says two ways of looking at this. So first you have Rav Ashi who says it depends what Avimi said to him. If he said give the money and then take the star, so that's what he did, there's nothing wrong. If he said first take the star and then give the money, then he specifically gave him instructions, otherwise he messed up, so he has to pay for it. And Gemara says this is not correct. Either way he has to pay for it, because his instructions aren't meant to be specific in that order. It's clear that he sent him in order to help him, in order to pay it off in a way that doesn't owe it anymore, he didn't send him to mess him up, to give the money and not be able to get the star back. And therefore, he does need to pay back to Avimi that which he lost. The Gemara now brings the next story, and that's that there was a man who left a case full of shtaros in the possession of a lady. He gave it to her to watch as a pikotin. She's holding on to it. Apparently it was her husband. Then he died, and the children, the Yorshim, came to claim it from her. They said, give us back the shtaros so we can collect the money that it says in them. And she said, I'm holding on to it as payment for an obligation that the man owes me. Perhaps it was a ksuba. The word doesn't say it was a ksuba. But I'm holding on to it. I'm grabbing it as a ksuba, as a payment that he owes me. So she's trying to get it away from the Yarshim. Now, we had said before on the last stuff that if she grabs it before the death of the husband, according to Rabbi Akiva, that's when she gets to keep it. If she grabs it after the death, then the inheritors get it, and the fact that she's holding it, it doesn't help. So she said, I grabbed it, I'm holding on to it as payment for a chov that's owed to me. So they came to Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman said, do you have witnesses that they came and claimed it from you before the death of the man, and you said you're not going to give it? She said, no. So he said, if that's the case, then you were holding it all this time as a pikotin for the husband. That's not called holding. That's not called that you grabbed it. You're holding it for him. You're holding it, he asked you to hold it for him. You're holding it for him. You're not holding it for yourself. You're holding it for him. It's only called holding it for yourself when they asked you for it and you said no. If you can't prove that that happened while he was still alive, that's called that you grabbed it after he died. And grabbing after he died, according to Rabbi Akiva, means nothing, and you do have to give it back. Gemara now brings the next story, and this happened with Rava. Rava was the dayan in Beis Din, and Rava's wife was the daughter of Reb Chizda. So there was a lady that came in front of him, and whatever the case was, she had a claim against her that she owed money. She denied it, and the halacha was that she's supposed to swear. So Rava said to her, so you have to swear. But now Rava's wife, daughter of Reb Chizda, said to her husband Rava, I know that this lady is chashad ashur. She's willing to swear falsely. So Rava said, okay, if that's the case, then she can't swear and win. The other party, the one that's against her, he has the right to swear and win, because that's the halacha. If somebody's in a position where they have to swear, and then they could win, but we know that they're suspected of being willing to swear falsely, then the other person swears. Now, a different time, Rav Papa and Rav Adbar Masna were sitting in front of Rava, and a case came where there was a contract that people wanted to use to collect, and Rav Papa said, I know that it's not collectible. I know that this is a contract that talks about a loan that has already been paid up. So Rava said, you're in Eid Echad, you're only one witness, do you have somebody else with you? So he said, no. So he said, well, it's very nice that you say it that way, but I can't trust you, you're only one witness. So Rabbi Masa said, it should at least be as good as your wife, at least be as good as Rav Chizda. You trusted the daughter of Rav Chizda, who was alone, and you trusted her enough to make the other person be able to swear, then you should at least trust Rav Papa to make the other person be able to swear. You should at least sway over here. So on that, Rava said, I know that Rav Chizda's daughter, I know that my wife is not going to lie. I know her personally very well. She's not lying, and therefore I trusted her. You're very nice, but I don't know you personally, and therefore I'm not going to rely on what you said as an Eid Echad. So says the Gemara, if that's true, that there's such a rule that if you know someone personally that they're trustworthy, they're definitely not going to lie. So then, let's say you have a situation where you have something like Abba Bar Mori, who you know is not going to lie for sure, so you could tear up a collectible star based on what he says. Someone says, tear up a collectible star. If it's to know it's collectible, how could you tear it up? Someone says, okay, no, we're not going to tear it up and get rid of it, but we're not going to use it. We're not going to force it. If he says something to show that the star is not good, we won't tear it up, but we won't use it to collect. We'll just kind of leave things the way they are. The next case also involves a lady who was chayav shua. She had to swear in order to win a case. This was in the basin of Rav Bibi Bar Abaye. So she had to swear, and she was willing to swear. And the one that she was arguing with, the litigant against her, said, let her come swear in our town. Maybe we shouldn't be embarrassed. But she came and she was ready to swear. And she said to them, listen, before I swear, write the document to show that I was found to be correct, that I swore and I won the case. Prepare the document first. Then I'm going to swear, and then you could just sign it and give it to me because I'll have won the case. So Rav Bibi Bar Abaye said, okay, write it, no problem. So Rav Papi said, Rav Bibi Bar Abaye is from a cut-off family, and he says cut-off things, meaning he's descended from the children of Eli Kohen, who there was a decree against them that they would not live long. Abaye, we know, was descended from Eli Kohen, so Rav Bibi Bar Abaye was also. And he said cut off things because this is not the correct halacha. Why? Because Rava says you're not allowed to do something which is not true. You're not allowed to write down something which is not true in preparation for it becoming true. Where do you see that? So you have a case of a court that wanted to certify signatures. So they wrote out a star that to say that the signatures here are certified before the witnesses came. And then the witnesses were going to come and make it true. So we said that that's puzzle. You're not allowed to do that because it looks like it's false. It has the appearance of being false. In this case also, if you're going to write a star to show that she won the case because she swore, and you're going to write it out before she swears, it's also no good. So this is not correct. You are allowed to do it. You're allowed to write something out before it happens, and it goes into effect when it happens. Where do you see that? From Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman says you're allowed to reuse a star. You're allowed to recycle a star as long as it's still valid. Now, Reb Meir and the Chachamim argue about that, but they only argue in a case of a get, which has to be l'shma, has to be written for this person, this wife, for this husband, in this place, and all those things. There you have an argument about it. However, in a case of you just have a loan, where there's no halacha of l'shma, so let's say somebody makes a loan, and he pays up the loan, and then he wants to make a new star. And he wants to make a new loan, and it's the same day, so the date is valid and it all applies. So there we said, Rav Yechanan said you shouldn't do it because the shibud, the mortgage it's written on the star was already meichel. The mortgage is not there anymore, so it can't apply again. But that's only a specific reason over there. But the fact that the star was written before the loan ever happened and it looks like falsehood, that we don't say. So you see, you're allowed to have something be written before it actually happens, and there's no problem of it appearing to be false. Next case involved someone who left property in the possession of Rabbi Miyasha, the grandson of Yeshua ben Levi, to watch. So he took 7 pearls, wrapped them in a cloth, and he gave them as a bikadon to Rabbi Miyasha to watch. And then Rabbi Miyasha died suddenly, and he didn't have a chance to tell his family members about these pearls that he was watching for that guy. So the guy came to claim his pearls, and they said, what pearls? Who says the pearls are yours? Maybe they really belong to Rabbi Miyasha, and now we are inheriting them. You're claiming that you left it to him with safekeeping, but we're not aware of such a thing. Maybe it's really ours now. So they came in front of Rabbi Ami. So Rabbi Ami says follows. First of all, we know Rav Miasha, grandson of Shub ben Levi, was not rich, so he definitely didn't have such pros like this. Second of all, they gave a simon. They had exact proof that is theirs because they said that it was wrapped in a cloth. It was 7 wrapped in a cloth, so they have a simon. So they said it's only because this guy does not often come to the house of Rav Miasha. If it would be there often, could be that he saw somebody else bring it in, and therefore he's claiming it's now his, and the fact that he had proof and the fact that Rav Miasha was not rich would not prove that it was his, could have been somebody else's. Now, a very similar story happened with someone by the name of Chasa. Somebody gave him bikadon, a silver cup. He died suddenly as well. He drowned in the river. And again, the same argument broke out. The guy wanted his silver cup back, but the inheritor said, we never heard of it, and therefore it's really our father's, and now you're inheriting it. The king of Nachman. Rav Nachman said, first of all, I happen to know personally that Chasa was not rich, so he didn't own a silver cup. Second of all, they're giving a simon. And they are not frequently in his house, so it couldn't be that they saw someone else bring it and give it to Chasa, and therefore you can believe them that they're the ones who gave it, and you can return it. Now we have another very similar story that happened when somebody left a roll of silk with Rav Dimi, the brother of Rav Safra. He died, didn't tell his family about it. They came and claimed it. The Yoshim said, no, it was our father's. This time they came before Rabbi Abba, and he said, well, I know he wasn't rich, and they're giving simanim, and it's only because they did not frequent this house, and they could not possibly have known that somebody else had given it. Otherwise, it could be that they just saw. Next case, we have somebody who was dying, and he was saying his will, and he said, give all my stuff to Tovia. Then he died, and he didn't say which Tovia he meant, and there were lots of Tovias in the city. So if one person named Tovia came, so Rabbi Yechanan said, okay, so this is probably the Tovia. He said Tovia, here comes the Tovia, assume it's him. What if he said Tovia and a person who came was called Rav Tovia, he was a rabbi? So do we say that it can't be? So if he was someone he wasn't close to, so we say, listen, he said he's giving to Tovia. He didn't say Rav Tovia. This person is Rav Tovia, so it can't be the one. However, if he's someone that he was close to, so it could be that he called him and he was on friendly terms with him, so he didn't call him Rabbi Tovia, he just called him Tovia because they had that kind of relationship. Now, if two people named Tovia both came and they both qualify, so he's supposed to give it to. So it depends what type of people they are. If one's a neighbor, one's a Talmud Chacham, you assume you wanted to give it to the Talmud Chacham. People on their deathbed generally want to do holy things with their property. If it was a Talmud Chacham and a relative, again you assume it was given to the Talmud Chacham. The question that we have is, what if it's a relative and a neighbor? So what do you do in a case like that? So Gemara brings a proof from a pasuk. It says, "Tayiv shachay and karov me'ach rachaik." A close neighbor is better than a distant brother. So you see, neighbor is better than a relative. Now, what if they are both relatives, or both neighbors, or both Talmid Chachamim? Everything's equal. So there, it's called shuda d'daini. It's up to the judges to try to figure out who he was close to and what he probably meant. Next, we have a statement of Rava, and here Rava speaks to the son of Reb Chia bar Avin. He said, come, let me tell you something nice that your father said. If somebody, we have a statement of Shmuel. Shmuel says if somebody sells a debt that he's holding, someone owes him money, and he sells the chayv to somebody else. Then he goes and he forgives the chayv. He's meichel it. He sold it and now he forgives it. So does that work or not? So the Gemara says it works. Shmuel said it works. He's allowed to be meichel the chayv because the chayv is related to him, but he sold the rights to collect. If he's meichel it, then there's no right to collect anymore. Says the Gemara further, even if he died and his inheritor is meichel the chayv, it counts. And that's enough. Now, so Rav Chia bar Avin added, if a lady has a chayv that somebody owes her, and she brings that into her marriage, and now that becomes part of the husband's possessions, and now she wants to be meichel, you would think the same thing is true, but here it's not true, because the husband has equal rights in it as she does, and therefore she can't be meichel it, he has as fair share, and her mechila doesn't count. Now we have one final case. There was a relative of Rav Nachman, a lady. She sold her ksuba. That is, she sold the right to collect the ksuba to a purchaser, obviously for less than the face value of the ksuba, because there was a risk that she may die before it ever becomes collectible, and there may be nothing to collect. She can only collect if she gets divorced or if the husband dies. Anyway, what happened was that she got divorced, and then she died. That means that it was collectible from the time that she got divorced, and then when she died, her daughter inherited the right to collect it. But along came the purchasers and they came, no, we bought the right to collect it, so we get it, not the daughter. So she had a problem. This girl, she was going to lose her mother's ksuba because she sold it. So Rav Nachman told her, here's what you could do. He said, there's no one to tell her good advice, but here's what really she should be able to do. She could be meichelet, make a deal with her mother's husband that he should give her some. She should be meichelet so that those people who bought it won't be able to collect it. So that way it won't be collected for the full amount and she'll at least get something. So she did it. And Rav Nachman said, we've done something wrong. We've made ourselves lawyers for someone. So Gemara asks, why did he at first think that it was okay to give that suggestion and then he withdrew? So first he thought it says, you have to take care of your family. And then he thought, as a chashuv person, it was irresponsible for him to start being a lawyer for once.